A three-story mansion rises from the Upper East Side, stitched together from not one, but three townhouses. Inside its Georgian walls are 13 bedrooms, 14 bathrooms, and 9 working fireplaces. A private elevator glides past each floor until it opens onto a 3,000-square-foot garden hidden behind tall iron gates. For most, this kind of space in Manhattan feels mythical. For Madonna, it became a fortress, yet one that was always measured against the memory of the cramped shoebox bedroom in Michigan where pigeons defecated on the sill outside her window. The leap from that image to this mansion is not just architectural, it is existential. Her empire of homes spreads far beyond Manhattan. In 2017, she paid nearly $8.9 million for an 18th-century Moorish revival mansion in the Portuguese countryside, roughly 20 miles from Lisbon. It sits on rolling hills, far from the noise of New York, with arches and tiled courtyards built for quiet. It was the kind of retreat unthinkable when she first arrived in New York City in 1978, with only $35 to her name, chasing a dancer's career. And yet with every retreat came exposure. Properties often drew media attention, the iron gates never fully shielding her from view. She has bought and sold properties like moves in a game of chess. A Miami estate in Mediterranean revival style. 9 bedrooms bought for $4.9 million, sold in 2000 for $7.5 million. Ashcombe House in Wiltshire, England, purchased with Guy Ritchie for about £9 million, complete with stables, a dairy house, and an 18th-century orangery. A French country-style Beverly Hills mansion with 8 bedrooms, 14 bathrooms, and acres of landscaped grounds, bought for $12 million and sold in 2013 for $19.5 million. Each purchase a win, each sale a profit. But the scale of the transaction carried another weight. The story of how a Detroit girl who once taped a postcard of Frida Kahlo to her wall to feel less alone became a global property mogul whose art pieces are worth more than entire city blocks. She later bought The Weeknd's 12,500-square-foot Hidden Hills estate for $19.3 million. With 9 bedrooms, a saltwater pool, and a 5-car garage, she listed it just a year later for $26 million. A house flipped almost as fast as it was bought, proof that her restlessness extended even to her grandest retreats. Every gate leads to a garage, and Madonna's garages became symbols of another kind of empire. At the center gleams a Maybach 62S, a limousine-like sedan valued by some outlets at over $1 million. Beside it, a Cadillac Escalade, the quintessential American SUV, price tag hovering around $111,000. The fleet extends to a Range Rover SV autobiography worth about $220,000, a Mercedes Maybach S550 at roughly $170,000, and even a Dodge Challenger SRT Hellcat, the muscle car choice, at about $80,000. Together, the collection is valued at over $2.1 million. But these machines tell a story in contrast. In the late 70s, she was not behind the wheel of anything like this. She was a subway rider, a graffiti tagger in downtown New York who scrawled "boy toy" on walls. That same phrase later adorned her belt buckle, then her copyright company, and now sits implied in the chrome of her luxury cars. Each vehicle not just transport, but a reminder that the tag on the subway wall became the brand on a global fleet. Even the gifts carried symbolic weight. On his 21st birthday, she reportedly handed her son Rocco the keys to a 1967 Jaguar Mark X 4.2. The car had cream leather seats, about 67,000 miles, and even a hidden touchscreen module tucked inside the vintage dash. For him, it was a present. For her, it was a statement that a boy raised in English country houses would still be given a slice of vintage Jaguar history. Yet, as with so many of her gestures, the gift attracted headlines as much as gratitude. If the homes and cars mark wealth, the stage marks power. In 2008, her Sticky and Sweet tour became the highest-grossing tour ever by a female artist. Cumulative across decades, she became the first woman to earn over $1 billion just from live performances. These numbers sound clinical on paper. In reality, they were experienced as spectacles. Stadiums stretched to capacity, the lighting rigs consuming industrial levels of power. Each night was not just a concert, but a demonstration of industrial force repurposed for music. Her Sticky and Sweet tour had just set records as the highest grossing ever by a female artist. To grasp the distance traveled, rewind to the early 80s. The Burning Up music video was shot on a shoestring. In it, she commandeers an amphibious car, lip-syncing into the night. During filming, a 7-ton crane nearly collapsed onto her boat. Crew recalled that if the crane had slipped, she might not have walked away at all. She wore crucifix earrings designed by Maripol and rubber bracelets hacked from typewriter drive belts. No mansion, no Maybach, just grit, improvisation, and danger. Contrast that near-death moment with the billion-dollar stadium tours decades later, and the awe is not just in what she built, but in what she survived to get there. But the spotlight that magnified her triumphs also exposed her stances. In one interview, she dismissed what she saw as the pitfalls of second-wave feminism. The women's movement wanted to be like men. I think that's bullshit. It was a comment that divided audiences. Admirers heard independence, critics heard provocation. Family tensions mirrored this public friction. In 2008, her brother Christopher Ciccone published Life with My Sister Madonna, a memoir that peeled back the curtain with unflattering anecdotes. Their relationship never fully recovered, and yet this wound carried irony. Christopher had once been her closest collaborator, the man who helped design her stage sets. The cost of empire was measured not just in dollars, but in bloodline distance. Her art collection deepened this paradox. She once said she taped a postcard of Frida Kahlo to her childhood wall for comfort. Decades later, she owned originals, but when Detroit asked to borrow one, she refused. From taped postcard to locked vault, the arc was both awe-inspiring and alienating. The same collection includes Picasso's Buste de Femme à la Frange, bought around 2000 for nearly $5 million, a Man Ray nude photograph of Kiki de Montparnasse, and works by Tamara de Lempicka, about whom she once boasted, "I have a Lempicka museum." Valued at more than $100 million, the collection is both a vault of reverence and a source of resentment. Behind these choices was a pattern of building and then breaking, of gaining then paying. In 1992, she launched Maverick Records under a $60 million Time Warner deal, a move that signed acts like Alanis Morissette and briefly made her as powerful behind the desk as on stage. But corporate infighting eroded the empire, and her stake was eventually bought out, a win undone by the machinery it was built within. Even when the contracts and collections defined her, the absences loomed. In 1979, she had rejected a Belgian record contract to preserve artistic control. That instinct for refusal, of walking away from quick wins, echoed in every later deal. The same woman who would accumulate 11 highest-paid female musician titles was also the one who turned down her first chance at a foreign contract, preferring hunger to compromise. Those choices also funded philanthropy. In 2006, she co-founded Raising Malawi, pouring in personal donations, including $1 million for an orphan care compound. It was a cause that spoke to her maternal identity, by then a mother of 6, Lourdes, Rocco, David, Mercy, and adopted twins Stella and Astaire. She built schools, funded clinics, and took children home. Yet her methods drew scrutiny. Her adoptions drew both praise and controversy in Malawi and abroad. The paradox was cruel, a woman who turned her own grief at losing her mother to breast cancer at age 5 into an empire of maternal gestures, but who faced suspicion every time she reached out. Awe in her reach wound in its reception. The tension between spectacle and cost also played out in her own body. On stage, she engineered moments of awe. One can imagine the Sticky and Sweet tour's climax, LED screens flashing, hydraulics rising, bass flooding stadium air. The staging was described as industrial scale, almost militaristic. Yet offstage, she was enduring physical wear. Years of dance training under Martha Graham and Pearl Lang had given her control, but also the joints of a marathoner. The same legs that carried her from dive bars to stadiums carried scars. Every leap in front of 50,000 was balanced by silence backstage, ice packs, and recovery. Wins counted in billions, wounds measured in bruises. Family life mirrored the pattern. Her first marriage to Sean Penn from 1985 to 1989 was a union often portrayed in media as turbulent. Her second, to Guy Ritchie from 2000 to 2008, anchored her in English countryside estates, horse farms, and Georgian townhouses. But even those 9 years ended in divorce. The Ashcombe estate, with its stables and orangery, became a symbol of that chapter, bought and sold along with the marriage itself. Children became the lasting thread. Lourdes, her firstborn, grew into fashion, Rocco into skate culture, the Malawian adoptions into a cause and controversy at once. For all the mansions and Maybachs, it was the image of Madonna walking hand in hand with her twins at a London school gate that told the quieter story. Her lifestyle quirks added another layer. In 2025, she appeared on TikTok flashing lapis and diamond grills, custom jewelry for her teeth. She had worn gold and diamond grills before, in 2013, and once defended them by saying they were a birthday gift to herself. Ugly teeth she enjoyed. To some, it was eccentric indulgence. To others, a refusal to conform to aging gracefully. At the Golden Globes in January 1998, she wore Balenciaga's fall-winter dress. In Miami a month later, a velvet burnout silk ruffle-trimmed top by Voyage. Even stepping out of Harperley Hall in February 1998, she turned the sidewalk into a runway, wearing a vintage carpet print coat and Prada's nylon bag. The detail may seem trivial, but in fashion, detail is meaning. Each outfit, like each lyric, became a cultural timestamp. And the wound here was public perception, adoration from some, dismissal from others, but always judgment. Her contradictions were rarely hidden. In a 1985 interview cover story, she declared, "Sadness is a teacher, and happiness is really a gift." In another, she said, "I don't take myself too seriously." I think that's a quality people have to hold on to. You have to laugh, especially at yourself. Yet these light statements sat beside darker memories, near death under a falling crane, family feuds turned into memoirs, and betrayals over art and money. The oscillation was constant. She insisted on humor but carried scars. And yet the awe remains undeniable. Consider her induction into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, her first year of eligibility. It was more than a career milestone. It was recognition that the girl from Bay City, Michigan, who arrived in New York with barely $1, had bent the axis of pop culture. She turned concerts into industrial spectacles, mansions into chess pieces, and personal rebellion into global influence. Her Ray of Light album in 1998 earned her first Grammys, not just for sales, but for artistry, for weaving electronica and mysticism into mainstream pop. Craft elevated into culture. The final contrast lingers. In Detroit, she once watched pigeons soil her window. In New York, she built a townhouse with a hidden garden. In Lisbon, she walked the tiled courtyards of a Moorish palace. In Hidden Hills, she filled a barn with horses, a pool with salt water, a garage with Maybachs. Each gain, each wound, each contradiction mapped onto properties, cars, canvases, and children. The cost was family rifts, suspicion, near-death moments, and the weight of constant exposure. The legacy is billions earned, cultural ceilings shattered, and artistry revered. She herself put it plainly. The pitfalls of the women's movement was that women wanted to be like men. I think that's bullshit. She wanted to be Madonna, something stranger, sharper, more enduring. To this day, the question remains whether the empire of homes, cars, and art was worth the fractures it caused. But the awe is unshakable, because beneath the controversies, behind the gates, and inside the vaults, lies the craft of a woman who mastered the art of turning herself into a living spectacle, one that changed music, fashion, and culture forever.